Hello and welcome to our 8th and final Herbology 201 class. We are going to talk about herbs and the 4 temperaments today, and we are going to talk also about your final project. So just to get us started, we're going to do a quick overview of where we're at. So we have learned quite a bit in this class, everything from poultices to spagyrics and another several herbs in between. So today we're going to talk um, about your final project presentation, and we're going to talk about something called the 4 temperaments. So let's go ahead, let's get started. And we'll talk about your class tasks for the week. So the first thing, obviously, you're going to want to listen to this video. The next thing you need to do, there's a video about the temperaments that explains them more in depth. In fact, before you get too far along in this video, you might want to go ahead and watch that. You will also need to turn in your final project, and then you're going to turn in an optional plant report that we'll talk about here in a little bit based on your final one of the plants you use in your final project. All right, so to get us started today, I want to kind of introduce you to what the 4 temperaments are. So I have a video that is attached in this lesson that you can watch that will explain these to you. This is actually from a business perspective. So it explains to you kind of how the 4 temperaments are applied as well. So go ahead and watch this video. I would encourage you to watch this video before you get started, before we talk about how herbs and things apply to the 4 temperaments. So you can kind of get an idea of what they are and how they work. All right. So hopefully you've had a chance to watch that video on the 4 temperaments now. And now we're going to talk about how those apply to herbs. So one of the temperaments that you heard was a choleric temperament. And this is considered as hot and dry. They mentioned a little bit about how the humors were associated with these. We don't so much use the humors anymore, but in case that's of interest to you, it was it was associated with yellow bile. It was associated with the element of fire, and sometimes it is associated with a bear. Now, you will see a picture, if you've ever seen Winnie the Pooh, you're going to see a picture of Rabbit. So they say that the characters in Winnie the Pooh all match these temperaments. And you'll see kind of how that works as we go along. But the character Rabbit, if you've ever seen the character Rabbit in Winnie the Pooh, Rabbit is what we would consider to be a choleric temperament. Now, how does this apply to herbs? So there are herbs that we consider to be hot and dry, and you can see some of them here. Ginger is one that is considered to be a choleric or a hot and dry herb. Rosemary is another one that is considered to be a hot and dry herb. Lavender, and then also nigella is one that is considered to be hot and dry. So these are the characteristics or the temperaments of these particular herbs. We're going to see that certain illnesses or conditions in the body also have a temperament associated with them. So the way that this is going to work is we are going to see how these herbs balance. So the idea is we're balancing hot with cold, dry with wet. And that's the idea behind this, is that we're balancing out the body. So, but first we're going to just kind of go over what some of these herbs are and the characteristics of the temperaments. So the next temperament is a sanguine temperament. It's considered hot and wet. The humor that was associated with it was blood. The element that is associated with it is air. And sometimes we hear monkey associated with a sanguine temperament as well. And you can see in the picture, so this is Roo from Winnie the Pooh. And if you know anything about um, Roo's personality, he's upbeat, he's active, um, and he's generally pretty good tempered. So some of the herbs that we associate with the sanguine temperament include mint, which is in the top right-hand corner. Marshmallow is another one. Marjoram is a third that we associate with the sanguine temperament. And also licorice down here at the bottom is another one that we associate with sanguine temperament. The next temperament is the phlegmatic temperament. It's cold and wet. The associated humor is phlegm. And the element is water. We often think of dolphin as being a phlegmatic animal. The other thing we consider as phlegmatic is Winnie the Pooh himself. So if you've ever seen Winnie the Pooh, he's not as active as Roo, but he's a very good, upbeat, positive temperament or personality. So some of the phlegmatic herbs include over here in the top right-hand corner is borage, and in the middle is henna leaves. In the top left-hand corner is hyssop, and at the bottom are hops. So these are all considered phlegmatic herbs. Now our final temperament is a melancholic temperament. It's cold and it's dry, and the humor that is associated with it is black bile. The element is earth. And sometimes we think of a melancholic temperament as being an owl, or in the case of the associations with the Winnie the Pooh characters, Eeyore is actually considered to be melancholic. And he is the quintessential melancholic. So if that kind of gives you an idea of what that personality might be like. Some of the melancholic herbs include the plantain here in the top right-hand corner, juniper berries there in the middle, and then also comfrey leaves, and barley down here at the bottom. They're all melancholic herbs. So they're cold and they're dry. All right. All right. So now how do we apply this knowledge? So I kind of explained this a little bit at the beginning. So we have conditions that are associated with these temperaments. They're either hot and wet imbalances, hot and dry imbalances, cold and dry imbalances, cold and wet imbalances. And the way that you balance these out is with the opposite. So if you have high blood pressure, which is associated with a sanguine temperament, um, so a high blood pressure as a sanguine temperament is considered to be a hot and wet imbalance. So you're going to want to balance that with something that is cold and dry. So a melancholic herb, we talked about plantain in just the last slide. So you would balance high blood pressure with plantain, or you could balance high blood pressure with plantain. You can see how this works in the rest of the chart. Your caloric imbalances include sweating. You want to balance it with something. So sweating being a hot and dry imbalance, you want to balance it with something that's cold and wet, like hyssop. And you can kind of see how this works in the rest of the chart as well. You're balancing each thing with its opposite is the idea here. Now, if you want to know what your personality type is, um, what your temperament type is, you can take the test at the 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 link here below, and I will put that in your lesson as well so that you can do that on your own. I will say that sometimes we are often um, a blend of more than one type. Uh, Sometimes you hear people referred to as a melancholic choleric. That's what I am. Personally, I have primarily melancholic temperament with choleric uh, is my next highest type, and they're kind of equal. So so I actually have a temperament blend, and a lot of people have this as well. The good thing about this particular test is it will show you what your percentages are for each of the different types. So you can see if you have two that are kind of neck and neck dominant, that you might be a blend of temperaments as well. So that's something to be aware of. And in fact, you can actually look up, there's even information out there about characteristics of temperament blends as well. So that is something that if you're interested in, you can look into further. All right, so now we have reached the end of our class. So this is a little bit different than Herbology 101. We do a, a test in Herbology 101, our final project, and then a test in Herbology 101. For Herbology 201, you do a final project just like you did in Herbology 101, where you're asked to create one of the herbal preparations that we have discussed using your own choice of herbs. Now, for your extra part, if you are wanting a grade for this, I do want you to do a brief research paper about herbs that you used in your preparation. I want you to include the herbs' common and botanical names, the properties, uses, a description of how you created your preparation. So I want you to do a little bit more in-depth research into the herbs that you're using. So tell me their common names, their botanical names, their properties, and some of their other uses that you use in your preparation. Um, go ahead and submit that either to me via our classroom message board or via private messaging, email, anyway. Um, you can go ahead and submit that to me. Now, I do want you to do the final project, but the paper is optional. However, if you do wish to receive a grade for the class, then 40 points of your grade are going to be based on your preparation, and then 60 points of your grade are going to be based on your research paper. So if you are interested in having a grade, go ahead and get that in for me, please. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Thanks for being in my class. Bye-bye.